Are you ready to take your podcast to the next level? Then look no further than NAST Studios, located in Seattle's Pioneer Square. Hi, I'm Blake. I'm the owner, in-house producer, and editor. We've got 3 cameras to capture every moment and can host up to 8 mics, ensuring your podcast looks and sounds professional. We've got affordable pricing for podcasters at all levels. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.naststudios.com. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today I'm with a guest. I've been wanting to have you on the show for about 2 years now. Like when
Really?
I feel like I was one of your first subscribers for Mind Under Matter. Actually.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so here I am.
I miss Mind Under Matter so much because you had Ramin on the show,
Yeah, man.
right? Yeah, it's literally like the best. I've done 3 different podcasts, the longest of which here we are, where I interview scientists. I did for 10 years.
Yeah.
But over the last, I don't know, 12 to 15 years or something like that, I've had a number of podcasts, and that was an amazing COVID project with one of my best friends. I interview scientists, he interviews artists and mystics, and
100%.
he's also just so hilarious, and he's quick off the cuff in ways that I'm not. I'm like a writer, and I prepare and do, I'm good at stand-up and incredible improviser. And so I loved it so much as COVID started, as everything was opening up and started touring again, we put a pause on it for me to put together this tour and him to do his own stuff live. But man, everyone keeps mentioning that, it's so awesome. I just had a show in Tacoma last night, and someone was like, when's Mind Under Matter coming back? And what I really want is if I can talk Ramin into touring a bit. He doesn't like touring as much as I do, but I'd like to do it live.
Yeah,
it would be a lot of fun,
because I feel like you guys are both a little bit on the shy side, but then you guys come together and you have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But I'm here with Shane Mauss. He's a comedian. He's a user of psychedelics. I feel like you're on a psychedelic tour, so I feel like that's a thing. That's part of your brand, I guess.
I mean, I started in regular old stand-up comedy 20 years ago. I was fortunate, caught some breaks early on, and then as I had these opportunities and was traveling everywhere and wanted to, and then like when I got into my 30s and wanted to like say things that were important and stuff, I was always reading science books and stuff, even though I didn't go to college. And so I started putting together, not just interviewing scientists, but then putting together science-themed shows. And the psychedelic thing, even though I've been using psychedelics for 28 years, and they've been deeply influential in my life. But that was just, I will say that I always had a dream of doing a show about psychedelics, but this was, 10 years ago. There was so much stigma and everything. I didn't see that as a possibility. And I happened to mention, I was speaking of podcasting. I was on Pete Holmes' podcast, You Made It Weird.
Yeah. He's the guy who does the Batman shit, right?
Yeah,
That's so fucking funny.
Yeah, he's so funny. And and I've been on a bunch of times, but this particular time I was going on to plug an album that I had made about breaking both of my feet and some of the evolutionary principles of why we experience pain and depression and anxiety and those sorts of things. And it just happened to come up in the story. He was like, how'd you break your feet? Well, I was in Sedona, Arizona. What were you doing there? Oh, I was going to do ayahuasca for the first time. Didn't get a chance to because I broke my feet while hiking before I got an opportunity to. What's the ayahuasca? Well, there's this stuff DMT that I've been getting very into, which is the kind of like main ingredient in ayahuasca for people that don't know. And he was like, what's that? And I started sharing some stories, and it took over the whole show. And then a lot of the best things happen like really naturally. Like it wasn't like necessarily like a hook or gimmick that I thought of. It just happened like really naturally, where people just started emailing me left and right, and I didn't realize there was so much interest in the space. And then I experimented with doing some psychedelic comedy shows, and what I found was the audiences really liked they liked all the comedy and everything. It's a super funny show and whatnot. I'm very proud of the comedic aspects of it.
Right.
But what really got me excited was I would get regular feedback about how much people liked the information in the show and how I presented the information and that they would learn things. And that's everything that I've been after as someone that's been trying to like integrate science concepts and stuff into all of the various podcasting and shows and stuff that I do. I feel like psychedelics are a good gateway to science. Got actually.
It. So like, I've been having a lot of different comics on who, in Seattle, there's a lot of like different, there's probably wherever, but like there's different niche types of comics. There's like mom comics. There's like people who focus on like being in LGBTQ plus community or whatever. So and I've been asking them, do you feel like you're boxing yourself in when you're saying you're just a mom comic or just talking about moms or whatever? And for you, do you feel like, do you even say you're a psych comic, or do you just feel like you're someone who has the means to bring it to a bigger audience, you know?
It's funny because like no matter what themed show that I'm doing, there's always like a non-trivial percentage of people that just assume I'm that at that time. So I had a special on Netflix called Mating Season, and during that time I was like the mating guy. Okay, you're like interested in mating research, and then I was the broken foot guy for a little while, and so, you know, these things come and go. I will say that I have been particularly. It's a double-edged sword. I've been particularly sensitive to being pigeonholed as a psychedelic comedian. Part of me doesn't mind it at all. Another part of me is quite proud to be, doing my small part to help normalize and educate and move. I'm very excited to see some of the laws and things that are starting to change. And then there's another part of me that like, no, I'm so much more. Like for example, my podcast Here We Are, where I interview scientists. People see my show and then they're like, oh, I want to check out that show. It must be about like psychedelic research or whatever. And I probably had one episode a year about psychedelics. I'm mostly interested in like animal behavior and evolutionary concepts and basically all things related to perception, consciousness, decision making. How did we get to be here? Why do we have the preferences that we do? Why do we find ourselves podcasting and blabbing about ourselves and curious about others too? And those are questions that have just always fascinated me so much. Like, what drives us, and especially in the realm of what are the kind of subconscious primes that we don't really consciously think about in the moment when we're making a decision.
Like, you started comedy at like 10 or something, right? It was like the first time you went on, it was super. So I was wondering, like, have you always been someone that's been curious, or did that come from doing comedy and like exploring the world in the U.S.? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I had the idea to be a comedian when I was 10 years old. So it was a childhood dream. I actually was very nervous. I am a naturally shy person, as you so accurately
There's no cameras or lights
out. Yeah. Actually, when the mic turns on, I'm fine.
Yeah, there we go.
It's when the mic's not on. I'm a shy person in real life, and I think that oh shoot, what was the question again?
Where did this like curiousness come from?
Yeah. I mean, I was raised. I had a very wholesome upbringing in Wisconsin, and I was raised Catholic, and I just from a very early age was like questioning it and asking questions from my parent, and it was like blasphemy to question everything. Like I remember I mean, I didn't believe in Santa Claus for like age 3 or something like that. And it was like kind of alienating, you know, when you're being told something that isn't adding up to you. And I remember like looking at, I remember I loved this Noah's Ark toy that I had when I was like 4 years old, and I remember questions back then. I'm like, wait, every animal in a boat, and there was something about that um I I think what made me curious was that it was actually related to my shyness.
Mm,
I was a very quiet kid, and I was very introspective. I was very introverted and also introspective.
got it.
And so I just, to this day, you can ask any girl I've ever dated, I am just in my head all of the time in a daydream state. I
Yeah,
can barely pay attention to tying my shoes or whatever. And
yeah,
so yeah, I don't know. And I'm glad that you bring up curiosity, because I think that my mission statement,
mm,
and what drives me and is curiosity, is celebrating curiosity. When I read a new book and learn something that is like, I have never thought of that before, and those paradigm shifting moments that make you look at all these other aspects of your life in a
right.
different way. I'm just a junkie for that. And
But then how do you implement that? That's the thing too. I feel like I always feel like, damn, this movie or this documentary or this book may have changed how I think in the moment. And then I'm like, oh shit, but now I have a studio or now I'm supposed to interview someone or I'm like doing this. I'm like, when do I take the time to actually have that impact my life, you know?
I mean, I would say that I haven't had to force it that much. In fact, a lot of times it's the other way around. A lot of times it just occurs to me how ridiculously obvious it is that, hey, I've like learned these things. I intellectually know these things. I have this new bit of knowledge and view of the world, and here I am doing this same behavior. So like,
Yeah.
for example, um I'm I've been a comedian for 20 years, and like I said, I caught a lot of breaks early on, meaning like I got to like be on late night, and I had like fancy Hollywood representation and management and agents like very early, before I knew what I was doing or anything else. And everything was kind of like done for me. And so I would get booked by someone else. Like a club would be doing the marketing for their shows. I
Hmm.
I would never have to, and marketing would feel like dirty or
Right.
something to me. I didn't like the idea of it. Like, I'm a comedian, I focus on my craft.
For
And
sure.
you find yourself talking to enough marketing professors or behavioral economics types or whatever, and then you go, wait, I got to be applying some of this stuff to what I do. And now I mean, I have people that I work with and that work for me.
Hmm.
I have employees and such, but I don't have the classic like Hollywood. I have a boutique agent that I consider like a partner, who like we are talking like every day, and not just booking shows but marketing and everything else. And so I've really kind of taken a lot of those principles that I've learned and applied them to like, what should our poster look like? What should the description be when people land on my site? What are they thinking? What's the
Yeah.
first impression of this? And that's going back to, yeah, I mean, you should hear some of the conversations that we have, and with my team, I'm talking about, evolutionary principles that might that might prime individuals generally to respond to one word in a different way than
Yeah. Yeah.
others, or like priming scarcity, like quick buy now before it sells out. Like simple things like that are actually rooted in deep evolutionary principles, and then all the way up to the neuroscience of what's going on in the mind and culture, of course, and society, and all of those things that I've learned um, can then uh, end up being applied to like getting a few extra butts in the seat,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
selling a little more merch after a show or
Yeah.
whatever. And So yeah, it's not always the case because I like learning just to learn. I certainly know an unusual amount about dung beetles or how city noise has influenced bird
I
migrations
bet, yeah.
or like uh I know a lot about insect genitalia stuff that I'm not necessarily applying to my day to day.
You don't have like
So
pictures of that in your like house, right? You don't.
actually,
Ladybug dicks in your house.
if you want to see a beautiful picture of insect genitalia, just Google damselfly penis. They actually make posters of it.
Oh
It's
my
the most
God.
gorgeous penis on earth. It's so some kind of basic principles are just really short to get to how fantastic this penis is. Basically, the more promiscuous a female is in a given species, the more male partners she has, the more pressure there is for those males to compete in different way to be fertilizing more eggs
Yeah.
or to gain access to the female, and the female damselfly is mating with thousands
Oh man.
of males. And so because of that, and every species is a little bit different, but because of that, they have things like they have all sorts of weird penises. The one that I'm picturing readily in my mind it unravels and it has forceps
Oh my
in
God.
it that open up so that they can scoop out other guys'
Oh my God.
gametes, and then different species have different. Some of them will then like afterwards, after they ejaculate, they'll put like a cement stopper in so that other guys can't get in
Ah.
there for a while, and then which leads to then evolving genitals that are able to rip through that stopper so that they can get in.
Oh
It's
my
a
God.
wild thing, and this is
Evolution.
evolution. It's 3 billion years in the if life's been on the planet for 4.5 billion years. About well, actually, only about a little over 1 billion years ago, there was like more distinct male and female, and things that happened 1 billion years ago are still influencing your Tinder profile or
Yeah.
whatever today, and that's endlessly fascinating to me.
That's crazy. I'm only thinking of like a duck dick. That's the only weird dick I can think of.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
spiral thing, right?
yeah, that's the corkscrew penis. It's a funny thing. Yeah, and it's a rather dark bit of mating behavior in that penises don't really make sense for ducks to have. They're not terribly aerodynamic.
Right.
Most birds don't have penises. They push their holes together. It's
What?
called like a um coital kiss or something like that. There's a
They're
few
gonna say
different
scissoring or
terms for it.
something, but
And yeah, and they just press these holes together and boom, it goes out, and then you don't need this
Amazing.
you're still very aerodynamic. Well, male ducks can be very coercive, and so females have evolved basically a maze inside of them to
oh my
keep the
God.
guys from getting in. They can also bend and arch to receive guys that they're
Yeah.
actually interested in, their main mates, but
Yeah.
say like some duck from another squad or whatever
Yeah.
comes in. So he has this incredible corkscrew penis that's like meant to navigate this maze of a tract that the female has.
Sounds like we need to cancel some ducks or something.
Exactly. Yeah, ducks are
my-
canceled.
oh my
Well, it's funny because people are putting up, you go to your grandma's house or something like that, and she has this beautiful like duck painting, this majestic scene on the lake. It's like that's a painting of rape happening.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me about this like mountain man look you have, because when you first came on the
Yeah.
scene, you're pretty clean cut.
Yeah,
But now
yeah.
you're like and I don't know if you're going for mountain man. You also remind me of like one of my neighbors growing up. His name was Wizard. And he was
yeah,
all,
I
he was
got a
all,
wizard thing. I got some Jesus stuff going on too. I hear Vikings sometimes. I got a lot going on here. This started at the beginning of COVID.
Okay.
I started doing this like web series with a friend. We just did like 10 episodes or something. It was just this fun like premise of trying to capture this like stay at home stuff in a preposterous way. It was like we created another world where there's actually more extreme virus. People were just spontaneously combusting and everything. And this is, so we did this like remotely, but we couldn't ever be in the same room. And to explain that, like I was trapped in an area. And so because I was trapped, I was like, well, I need to let my hair, I can't have haircuts in the world that we're building here. And I didn't even know I could grow a beard like this, and the beard came in very fast.
I can't even grow. I'm still young, but I can't even.
How old are you?
I'm 23. So
oh, you're 23.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, we have the best hair in podcasting. We got some great hair going on right now.
This is my braid era. This is like the second time I've been braided in like
I like
week
it.
or two.
Yeah.
So,
and so I started growing it out, and I'm like, well, I'm probably only going to do this once in life. And then once I had it, I was like, I'm going to take it for a spin. I got to at least do a tour. And then at the time, I wasn't sure what my next tour was going to be. But then once I landed on doing a psychedelic show for my tour coming out of COVID, it was settled. I was like, well, I got to keep the long hair and beard for the psychedelic tour. So we'll see. After this tour is over, I'll probably like shave the beard and go just long hair for a little while. And then when the beard comes back, I'll probably cut the hair and just do beard for a while. And then maybe clean cut again. If for the ladies out there missing the clean cut Shane Mauss, that might be 2-3 years away.
Oh my God! I don't know if you're like competing with like Duncan Trussell or something with the beard growth and everything.
Yeah, I mean, Duncan's a good friend. I've been on his show a bunch, and if only I knew that I could grow a beard like this, I might have done it earlier. Beard maintenance is actually pretty easy compared. Long hair, pain in the ass. Like I can't imagine what you're putting yourself through. How often do you have to do that?
So before this, because I've been growing my hair out for 5 years.
Okay.
And like I have like you have to do like leave-in conditioner, you have to do like hair masks. You're only supposed to shampoo once or twice a week. It's a whole thing. And then I was kind of getting tired of long hair, so I'm like, I'm gonna braid it. So this is my 3rd week into having braids now.
Okay, so 3 weeks ago you braided it. And
well,
then
I braided
it
it yesterday.
Stays like that.
Actually.
So you braid it like.
So I braided it 2 weeks ago and then redid it yesterday. And I found this lady who's like, her name's Jamila. She just became a
shout out Jamila
braider at a shop. So like now she's getting like more regular clients and.
So you go to her, she braids it.
Yeah.
And then how often do you need to? See,
that's the thing. It's
if I can have someone else manage my stuff, well, I just don't like I have to like brush my hair, like be attentive to like certain conditioner regimens and stuff like that. It's like I can't believe that ladies with long hair just like they just live their lives just always doing this struggle just keeping this stuff. It's a lot of work.
I get it. I get too into it. Like I just got this app called Yuka. Have you heard of Yuka?
No.
It scans barcodes in different grocery stores, anything with a barcode, and it tells you the actual ingredients. And if there's other products that have better ingredients for whether it's food or hair products or face products. So I'm going around different stores now, like pulling out my phone, like scanning it, being like, and then it'll give you recommendations, right? So I'm like, I'll just put this back and then grab this one. And it's like a whole.
And you have one go-to product that you're using, or like
as of now because of Yuka, Yuka recommended me this product called Native. So now I've been using Native, but who knows if like Yuka, well, maybe Yuka's accurate. I just don't know. It's saying certain chemicals that are in products aren't good, but then who am I to know what these chemicals actually are. You know what I mean?
What I've found is, and I have no idea if this is true, but just in terms of like what makes my hair feel best noticeably is that it's not I haven't found the perfect product. I've found some good ones, but what I find is the most useful is just switching conditioners regularly. It's like my hair gets a tolerance or
Yeah, I've
something
heard
like
about
that
that.
for
Yeah,
some
yeah.
of the effects. And so like I never buy the same conditioner twice
Yeah, yeah.
in a row. I'll revisit past
Ah,
conditioners, but every time I have a new bottle, I use some different
that
brand.
makes sense. And do you don't have like receding hair in your family or anything? Because you have a full set of.
Yeah,
My family's all
yeah, no,
bald, so I'm like, I have no idea what's gonna happen to
oh man, 23. We'll see. I mean, it looks fucking fantastic
Thank you,
right
thank you,
now.
thank you.
I mean, I'm 44,
Yeah, yeah,
so you know, I'm definitely I'm definitely very lucky.
yeah.
I don't think there's baldness in my family. I mean,
Lucky duck.
life's gonna get you one way or another if you live long enough. It'll eventually start thinning out. And I
Yeah.
just started getting some gray hairs in
Oh,
my beard here and
yeah,
there
yeah.
that I pluck out. But I think I got another few years of this
It's this
beautiful, majestic
yes. It adds a
mane
different
until
character. It's like a different, like a different era of your life.
yeah, yeah,
So that's
yeah.
pretty cool. Damn. So what's going on with these podcasts, though, man? So like, Mind Under Matter, you said because of COVID ending, you haven't been doing it, and
Yeah.
then your other podcast, you haven't on YouTube and Spotify at least hasn't been up for like 10 months or something.
Yeah, when I put together this current tour, so this current tour is not just a show about psychedelics. I also work with a VJ, so there's a lot real time
Fuck yeah,
visuals
hell yeah.
and going along with my material, and I'm also able to like improvise and go off on tangents, and he can always add atmosphere
That's
and
awesome.
has like a 25-year library of art that he's made as a VJ, and so he can go with the flow, and so it is like a two-person performance. And although like we kind of have our stuff down now, it was very involved to put together, and even just like the tech side of things and figuring out how to, because he doesn't travel with me, we do it remotely.
Damn.
He listens through Zoom and does something similar to a Twitch stream to provide visuals to the projector.
You have to make sure there's Wi-Fi going on in
Yeah,
the.
exactly, and so you got to make sure. Like I require venues take a screenshot of the speed tests that they run on their internet. I try to make sure and get Ethernet cables and stuff connected, and it just just stuff like that. And then like they don't read the rider, and like, oh, you need internet? What?
Oh my gosh.
And so and then I also hadn't performed until last year, since I took 3 years off because of COVID, and so the podcasts, I was just like, I just need to pause this. There was a natural time to pause them, and
The hibernation episode, perfect time to
yeah,
end it.
yeah, and I had so I've been trying to maybe fire it back up, but I also kind of want to interview like comic friends and artists that I meet along the way as well. So I've been going back and forth with whether I relaunch Here We Are as a different thing, or if I have a side project in addition to Here We Are and do Here We Are, which is the science show.
Yeah.
And so I started making a docu-series. I was like, well, I'm traveling everywhere. I can't like set up 3 cameras in a studio I mean, I can, but that's going to be a whole thing that's going to, inhibit my motivation to do it and put it all together. And I'm so busy on the road. And so, I might, so once I started then like hiring people in places, I was like, well, why not just do like a more heavily produced thing, and show me like walking around and actually checking out like various art galleries and people's businesses and stuff like that. So that's what I've been working on. I think that I am though going to maybe start just lining up like media rooms at local universities, and that would maybe allow me to bring Here We Are back, because I didn't do video before COVID, and then when everything went remote, I added video, and now you need video, and you want to get those highlights on social and stuff.
For sure.
And so,
do you have like a video guy that comes with you, like when you're on tour at all, or
no?
none of that? Wow.
So then I'm like, trying to find different places, and I'm selective about what markets I do it in.
For sure.
It's expensive and everything to do it that way, but yeah, so still trying to figure that out a little bit. But
there's always growth, and that's exciting to like continue to figure things out. So I have a question. When you brought up like taking like 3 years off, what is the difference between that and when you broke your heels and you were taking time off? Obviously, they're different.
I took like 3 months off when I broke my feet, and then I was on crutches, still touring around everywhere on stage.
But do you feel like there's like obviously there's an actual like pain thing that happened there, but and then 3 months versus 3 years is total different situations, but those are two major things that happened. Like there was COVID that happened. So like, what was the different? What if there was there any different mindset versus going back on stage after being in lockdown and COVID versus going on stage after being locked down in your basement basically and recovering?
Well, with breaking my feet, I had to build it into my act because I was going to be on crutches on stage. With COVID, I waited longer than any comic I can think of before touring again. I also, I regularly was talking with virologists and epidemiologists and things, and so I had decided to channel most of my effort into podcasting and other things, and so I waited so long that like had I started touring earlier, I probably would have needed to address the situation more, but because I waited so long, I didn't need to go out with COVID jokes and stuff like that. So it was really just kind of relearning how to do stand-up, which is always a good opportunity for breaking some past habits and stuff like that.
Did you did you take a deep dive on COVID then? When you say you were talking to virologists, were you also considering the contagion and everything on why you weren't going out to perform? So that was all stuff you were thinking about.
I had this show, Stand-Up Science, I was touring with before COVID, and I remember I was so I would have 2 local scientists in every city that I went to, and I was doing 3 cities a week, all different topics. And I was focusing on another show for a couple months, and then in January I started doing Stand-Up Science again, or it was early February or something like that, where I had the show in outside of Phoenix, and this biologist was and I had been not talking with scientists as much as I usually do for 2 months because I had a backlog, and so this and I don't watch the news ever, and so this biologist was like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm just not really comfortable being inside in a show right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, this virus coming out of China. And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, well, I don't want you to be uncomfortable or whatever. And I kind of at the time was like, this isn't anything. This is just news trying to scare us or whatever. And then I was like, well, maybe you'd want to still be on my podcast because we are also going to be recording something. And she's like, yeah, she's being weird about that too. And I'm like, usually I go to people's offices or homes, and she's like, well, you tour a lot. You're kind of a biological vector. And I'm like, oh, biological vector.
Oh my gosh.
And which in hindsight, very true. When you meet 200 people a night or whatever, you certainly are a biological vector. But and you travel from city to city. But And so I was like, what is this and I'm like, well, you could come to my Airbnb, or maybe there's like a room in the university. And she goes, well, maybe we could, because she's asking me if we could record outside. I'm like, it's like noisy. There's
Right.
airplanes. Like, what the hell is with this person? And then she is like, well, we could do a room inside, but like, I need to ask that we keep like 6 feet of distance, and like don't shake hands or anything like that. And I'm just like, okay, crazy, whatever. I'll catch you the next time around. And she was like, all right, but just so you know, I know this like sounds crazy, but everything's about to hit the fan. The world is about to change in ways that are unfathomable, and there's going to be like a run on items in grocery stores and stuff, so take care of yourself and like get prepared. And I'm like, whatever. And then like a couple weeks later, sure enough, like everything starts getting real wild, and within a month of that time was when everything started shutting down. And so that was listen to biologists. I guess they know what they're talking about.
So do you still try to connect with scientists even though you're not doing your podcast right now, or
I mean, I have I just on Friday I did a science-y show about apocalypse scenarios and surviving apocalypses, actually from a cooperation theorist, Athena Actipis, who wrote a book, uh, something guide to surviving an apocalypse, like science lessons that can be applied to prepping, essentially. And I have a lot of scientist friends, and I definitely miss my conversations with scientists. I'm definitely smarter when I am taking classes and reading books and doing interviews and prepping and such, and having these great conversations with people that have built a career around some very like specific area of research. And so I miss it quite a bit. And also there's the way that I have conversations is different depending on the context. And when I'm talking with researchers, it's fun to like really nerd out on some concept, because there's like everything, like mechanics have their own like language and jokes and stuff that they're making, like when you know a subject really well, just there's kind of an almost different language and cadence around it, and when you're speaking with experts. And I definitely miss that. It was always like intimidating and challenging, but very rewarding and stimulating.
There's like conversation between like people using like their left side of their brain and their right side, and you talk about a lot of like science stuff, but you're also like a comic. Do you feel like you use one side more than the other though, or like how would that?
That's a good question. Yeah, that stuff, like everything in science, though, that research is both true and very interesting, and in some contexts overplayed, like a little bit. Like there's certainly not like one region that's like the only thing. Usually there's not like one side that's like the only thing that's active. There's like a zillion interesting studies that reveal a lot of different functioning happening on different sides. But in terms of in terms of kind of styles of thinking, I am definitely I am a deep thinker, and I am a good problem solver and creative. I am not terribly verbally fluent. I mean, I talk enough that I get better and better in time, but I talk to someone like Duncan Trussell or something like that's like a wizard with words, and that's like not, you can tell like there's some differing like brain differences going on here, and I'm also like not a very I'm not very attentive or conscientious. I'm very like distracted all of the time, and so that's some kind of right brain, left brain stuff that I would say influences my personality.
God, I feel like you don't sound like a bullshitter though when you're talking about stuff that you're interested in. You know, like I feel like sometimes when people say they're smart, not even saying that you're claiming to be smart, but when people like try to talk about,
I don't even know what smart means.
But like when some people like talk about like being like a smart person or like try to like say they know something, like did you check out like the Terrence Howard interview with Joe Rogan like a week or two ago?
No.
Oh my God,
I'm not the biggest Rogan. Oh yeah. Oh, I saw a clip of that.
Yeah, and like it was like that was
that's
like
the
crazy.
Sort of stuff that Rogan's always gravitated to. He's like you watch the Animal Planet and like David Attenborough is like the science side of it, and then there's like the Finding Bigfoot show, and okay, they might be working based off of the Finding Bigfoot people might be like interested in primatology or whatever, and David Attenborough doesn't know everything, and also makes mistakes and whatnot, but they aren't on level playing fields there.
Right.
And so I think that I do Rogan has always gravitated more towards that Finding Bigfoot. So I don't take most of the science discourse on his show very seriously anyway. But in the way that like Ancient Aliens is the most popular thing on the History Channel or whatever. And,
sorry for the crazy garbage truck.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a thing where, I was just hanging out with some people recently where some people care deeply about sounding smart.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not always like a lot of substance to like be like, but like, what do you mean by that? And like often they can't really like explain actually what they're, or they won't be able to like reproduce it in a study, or they can't really show like a deep understanding. They can usually demonstrate like a nimbleness with words and having like memorized certain impressive sounding jargon.
Yeah.
And whereas I think that my linguistic deficits, like I was always really bad in English classes and slow reader and like so much so that like had I not been exceptional at math, I would have been in like special classes or held back or whatever.
Right.
And so there's something about that has made me good at like I guess because like kind of math was the only thing that I ever was good at in school, that I then like when I um started comedy, like my jokes would be kind of like I would kind of look at certain joke structures and stuff in like a mathematical way, and so I've also applied that to just educating myself, and I also so there's science popularizers that are like writing books that are like maybe influenced by scientific thinking or whatever, and then there's like scientists, and there are two different things, and usually these like influencers get a lot more attention by sounding very you watch like CSI Miami or something like that, and they'll throw out these like terms about what's the field of science, but they'll throw out like some sciencey smart sounding things
about DNA or whatever.
That your average listener is like, okay, well, this is a smart sounding but like anyone in that field would be like, this is actually laughable what they're saying right now. And what I've learned from interviewing scientists, which I've interviewed like over 500 now, over 400 on the podcast, and then actually another like 200 in live shows. And so what I picked up on, and this isn't like something that they're trained or like they get together and agree on, but scientists just naturally say, I don't know, more than any human on earth, and they'll often be like, well, what do you mean by that? And they're often like questioning themselves. I'll look through their work, I'll reference some paper that they wrote 10 years ago, and they're like, actually, there's some new things known about that, and we missed a few things back then. And so I think that can be like a little bit persnickety and maybe dry and boring for some people, but I think that to have like a really deep understanding of a concept is just so useful. And I know this in like the psychedelic space. People come up to me all the time after shows, and they'll have like more things like I don't know chemistry, and so they'll like know the chemical this and that and this thing and this does this to this region of the brain, and they're using a bunch of jargon, and I'm like familiar with the jargon, but I'm usually like, yeah, but what are you saying exactly?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that sounds good. I think that we're social apes at the end of the day, and our brains aren't. Our brains didn't. I think intuitively we go like, well, we want to be accurate, and in a lot of cases, you do. You want to really understand what chord is going to make your cameras and microphones and such work, and then but there's levels of like communication where accuracy isn't necessarily the most selected for thing. There's we actually just saying kind of impressive sounding fluff or inspirational things or things that motivate people that aren't based in any reality whatsoever are sometimes more garner more respect in a social setting, or in terms of people getting status and
It's like a one-upping
everything.
type thing.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of ways that we advertise our intelligence, and some of those is by doing impressive things, or like there's also um people think advertising intelligence like, oh, you can like rattle off math theorems or something like that, but people advertise their intelligence by playing music or dancing really well. Intelligence means a lot of different
Emotional
things.
intelligence.
Emotional intelligence, so an ability to I'm not the most like socially intelligent. I mean, I'm or maybe I'm just introverted, and I'm a little awkward at like say a party. But whereas some people know how to like walk into a room and just, hey, look at everything going and getting
Finger
that party
guns,
started.
that's what they're doing.
Yeah, you got to get those finger guns going, and so it's just individual differences.
Do you feel like your comedy helps you understand what you're researching and learning about on a deeper level? Because like then
Actually,
you have to portray that to like even like your mating season. Like it was a lot of like animal sex jokes and stuff, but like it seemed like you knew you were talking about and like you were.
yeah, and that one I tried to make super accessible. That was my first time doing a themed show, and I could have actually done more challenging material. It's just that I hadn't yet figured out how to like produce and market my own shows, so that it was worked out in just like a comedy club, and they weren't expecting someone to like talk about mating behavior for 45 minutes, so I had to like make it so that it would work for everyone. And then in hindsight I was like, yeah, but for something that's on TV, people can actually be more like cognitively present and not have to worry about like the everyone else in the room getting it before they can laugh or whatever too. And so I've pushed myself more ever since, and I find that um there's just within writing and then being on stage, because in a conversation I can say all sorts of bullshit, but when I'm on stage,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know who's in this room. A lot of, especially my stand-up science shows that I did, most of the people that came out were science enthusiasts. A lot of the people, I mean, a lot of times there'd be other professors from the university who come out to
Damn.
attend the show, and it's like, I'm gonna think a little bit more about what I'm saying and like make sure what I'm saying is, if not perfectly accurate, at least like thought through in a kind of scientific way.
Mhm.
And so that happens all of the time where I'm just like, is that correct? And am I articulating that in a clear way? So I always have like different research projects that go along with whatever shows that I'm doing that
Yeah.
yeah, like right now I really need to find some, like take some of the material, like most of the art going on is like, cool morphing representation of the psychedelic space, but I want to put in like a little more information visually as well. I don't want the show to be a PowerPoint presentation, but I certainly have like a lot of things in my act where I'm talking about MDMA for PTSD or mushrooms for depression, where I'm like, I got to go back and see what the like best papers are so I can just show like the title of the paper in the abstract or something when I'm talking about it. So that people can like read it in a different way than I'm presenting it, and two, just so people know there's a difference between like just saying things and things that actually have like a robust amount of research
Right.
behind them.
Yeah, because I've done some VJ projects too. I'm a DJ, but not a VJ. But I have friends that are VJs, and
Mm-hmm.
I've done shows with them. And like, you can, I don't know how legal or not legal, but you could like rip stuff from documentaries and like mix
Mm-hmm.
that in. So I bet you can probably get as deep as you wanted into that realm of like
Yeah, absolutely.
diving into different documentaries or whatever.
Yeah, so I'm always I mean, I would say since putting together this tour, because I have not just this tour, but I have a product line that I just launched, which is legal psychoactives, Blue Lotus and Amanita muscaria, and
Oh,
more things coming. It's called My Purple Lady, based on this purple lady that
yeah.
I
I just watched
interact with in
this.
a DMT space. And so that this is a year and a half ago was when I paused the podcast to like really focus on the show and then start building this company as well to allow to one, so that I can have a little more time off of touring and focus on some other things, but then also just it's just a fun opportunity to learn something new. I'm learning about business and investment and bookkeeping now, and those are things that have never been a strong suit of mine, so it's like outside of my comfort zone. So I always, and I think the research does back this up, which is like, if you can kind of, it feels really good, and it will feel like continued growth if you can always be like pushing just outside your comfort zone. You don't want to get too far. It can be really intimidating
Yeah.
sometimes, or you can find yourself in over your head a little bit and everything else. But I definitely um I think that that's just one of the best, and I'm not talking about even just like educating yourself necessarily. I'm talking about like taking on a new hobby or
Yeah.
anything, even within your own work. I know if you see like my first Conan appearances or something, I have a very different style than I
For
do
sure.
now. I have I was like a very short joke, absurdist, kind of dry. I'm still dry, like very like late night kind of friendly, like 30-second jokes, and would often like push some of the boundaries of like sensibilities or
Faggot or whatever you said. Was it faggot or?
yeah. And so like getting away with like taboo things and like a aw shucks Midwestern delivery type thing. And and uh and there and then when I that worked well for me, and then when I started touring and headlining and I had to do 45 minutes, I realized the audience would tune in to they would start being able to predict my jokes that were meant to
Uh,
be kind of unpredictable because it was like this rhythm, or the rhythm would kind of like these structures that were normally very attention grabbing over time it just became like a little too redundant. So I was like, I need to like maybe I'll venture off and like tell a story. That might not seem like a big deal, but like if you're not used to being a storyteller and to like now take a you do regular stand up, you have a 30-second joke that doesn't go your way. Well, I have one that I know works every time that I'll do next and get the audience back. But if you're telling a 5 to 15 minute story or something, I mean, I have stories now that are like 20, 30
damn.
minutes. And like, if the audience isn't feeling that story, like that is a substantial amount of time to commit to and to
Yeah,
have the energy in the room be weird. And so that's like a whole other thing to navigate and learn, and how to alter a story based on like how it's going in real time. And so that was like pushing myself outside my comfort zone.
for
It's not
sure.
like I'd never told stories before or anything, but it was a little uncomfortable for me. And then like, kind of doing like little bits of characters or just other little bits of styles and things here and there on stage. Or like I was always like terrified of singing. I've never liked karaoke. And so there was like certain material that I had that like suddenly like I'm forced to sing it, like it serves the
Nice.
material or the story, like I have to sing in this. I don't care if you're a good singer or not, you still have to sing. That's the only way this joke makes sense. And that always just, that's how you gain mastery over more things. It's always a little intimidating in the beginning. You gain experience, you learn a little bit, and then that what was once that kind of intimidating thing that you didn't have a great deal of confidence in, suddenly becomes something that you have mastery over, and that just is like another tool in your toolkit.
For sure. So with this type of stuff, are you doing this at clubs at all? Or like how are you mastering this or working through this? Because like if you're like a comic that like is in LA, you're able to just like, drop in or
Oh, I get
whatever
so much stage time. I mean, I'm on, my show now is 90 minutes long.
Wow. Nice.
There's a lot of depending on the night and how I'm feeling, it can be like pretty structured. I mean, I'm gearing up for recording a special, but there's
Yeah.
also plenty of wiggle room to veer off and go off in different directions and such. And so yeah, I get tons of stage time. I mean, right now it's a psychedelic themed show, so I have like some new material that I've been writing that isn't psychedelic themed. So I might need to figure out some time to do regular stand up along the way or some stuff like that. But
Yeah. So what are some pros and cons you can tell people about psychedelics? Because there's definitely some people like misuse psychedelics or like
sure.
feel like they're the master of whatever because they've done psychedelics.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like everything, some of these they're now kind of become, as they've become normalized. They're maybe even a little oversold or overpromised, but um, I mean, that is an endless conversation. I mean, traditionally, I should say historically for myself, I have gravitated toward, I've been eating mushrooms fairly regularly for a very long time. I actually did lose my mind based on overuse of psychedelics back in 2017, and I
Wow.
haven't done as many mushrooms as regularly ever since. But before that time, and those were extreme situations, but before that time, I mean, I found that that the psychedelic state that kind of opens up connections in the mind and access to aspects of your subconscious that you don't regularly have access to, are uh, great catalysts for the very things that we've been talking about, which is like seeing things from a different perception, thinking about things in a new way, and having these sort of like epiphanies that make you see some of your behaviors or your relationship with family or just humanity itself, or understanding others. It's essentially, for me, it's been like shower thoughts on steroids. I've always been more of the like, I mean, I used to think like, before I had a psychedelic themed show or anything, I'd be like, oh, this is my job's like so easy. Like, I figured it out. All I have to do is eat mushrooms and like write some material and then spend some time the next couple days like fleshing it out, and I can generate great material faster than pretty much anyone out there. I'm not as prolific these days as I used to be because I have so many other things going on, but that's what I had historically used it for, and then it happened to also be good for depression for me, and usually kind of inspiring some hope in like a new in like a path forward. A lot of times I kind of it's the brain, the brain will sometimes like to like generalize a lot, so you can even start off with things that are like exciting. You might have like one project that you want to do that you're excited about, and then you go like, oh, but maybe I could do this with it too, and next thing you know, you have like what's ultimately like five different projects, and now you're sitting there going like, well, what one do I actually focus on? And now you've created this like sense of overwhelm for yourself. These like each one of these things should be good and fun and exciting to explore, but I think like oftentimes depression can be about pumping the brakes on action.
Mhm.
I think that's some of the evolutionary function for it, and so say whatever next show, whether it's bringing back Here We Are or launching a new podcast, well, we're talking about something that could be years of my life. Not only
Right.
could it be years of my life, but there might be very little payoff, or it might take a very long time to get traction. And maybe if I stick with it, it will do well, but do you know that? And maybe it won't. Maybe it will do worse. And so um though those decisions can start becoming so complicated that you can start telling yourself like, ah, why even bother? Like, you've now generalized so much, and like, uh, well, I can't do all those things, so why even do any of them? And mushrooms have often um highlighted, like you said, people think that they're enlightened or whatever. I Some people take psychedelics and be like, I see the truth now, and I'm like, I doubt it. I
Yeah.
don't think any one of us are in any danger of stumbling on some ultimate truth anytime soon, but I think that to have a bit of inspiration, to be like, oh, this is the name of the show. This is what I'm going to commit to doing, even if it's not the perfect one,
Yeah.
even if it's not the actual perfect path, which isn't a thing that exists anyway. That I think that even the illusion of having a clear path in life is something that can kind of at least get you taking the steps to
For
make
sure.
something
For
happen,
sure.
which is certainly better than doing nothing because it seems too hard or overwhelming.
For sure. I feel like I've had like the reversed effect if I've ever done psychedelics. I feel like I don't want to do anything.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
It's
Well,
like I don't know.
yeah, I mean, listen, you can have a psychedelic experience, zoom out, see a lot of the things that have maybe been your main drivers in life, like someone, my girlfriend is ex-Mormon, and she got into psychedelics, and that like really opened her up. She's now, and that's when she started leaving. She was a devout Mormon. She did like missionaries to South America and stuff, trying to convert other people into this beautiful Mormon religion, and then took mushrooms, realized like, oh, this was just like some con man that like made up all of these things, and this isn't actually based in reality. And of course that can be depressing because you're now having to like find new motivations in life. A lot of people will do very well with some like inaccurate kind of frameworks of stories that they're telling themselves, but God damn it, they believe it, and that keeps them moving in whatever arbitrary direction in life, and they might be wildly successful and have, you know, like a happy family life and do well financially and career wise and status wise, all based on faulty logic. There are people that do very well based off really deeply believing their own bullshit, and so and it's not, again, it's not that like a psychedelic experience is necessarily making you see the truth, but it might make you question some of those bits of like, why do I believe this thing? Why do I behave in that certain way? And now you have to do the thing of like, oh, I need to do more bookkeeping or something, like this thing that I like wrote off as like, someone else will do that, or I'll make enough money I don't need to worry about my spending or something like that. And now you gotta take a hard look at yourself and go like, crap, I need to look at my spending or what. Of course that can be depressing. And you know, I mean, I think that depression isn't always the end of the world. I think that if you live a life not ever experiencing depression, you probably find yourself gleefully walking in front of a bus at some point because you're too oblivious to you know, and you also just might trust too many people, you might invest too much in something that was never a good idea, or you know, a bad, I mean, there's a lot of people that have a lot of beliefs in like really bad business ideas or inventions that they come up with or whatever, you know, and ruin their whole lives pursuing these things because they're optimistic and in a good mood and working out and taking care of all those other things. And had they just sat with that depression a little bit, maybe they would have just like come up with like a tweak on that idea.
Whenever I do psychedelics, I feel like I turn into a puddle and I just want to touch the ground, or like I don't feel like anything. But then if I do weed, I don't even think it's the right term. I don't really smoke weed anyways because it makes me
do weed, bro.
It makes me like super paranoid. The last time I smoked was on 420, and I was like internally like dying. But I'm feeling like there's something with your like you're overthinking there. But then when I do any psychedelics, I feel like I can't think of a thought, and it's not even a lot of. I don't even have to take a lot.
That's the way I feel on ketamine. But I enjoy the experience nonetheless. So one, psychedelics aren't for everyone. Not every psychedelic is for everyone. Every psychedelic is going to be different in different settings and for different contexts, and what's on your mind and the environment that you're in and your intention, whether you're going to a festival or you want to sit and do writing or you're going into therapy. These are three very wildly different intentions and environments for the same substance, and it's also unpredictable in that you might go to the concert and find that to be more therapeutic, and then go to the therapy session and just want to be listening to music the whole time or whatever else. But I would say that one of the most important things that I learned, and I was like probably a little older than you, and I like really kind of tuned into the importance of this, is that for me, it's not so much about the psychedelic experience. I like the psychedelic experience, but I used to love the psychedelic experience. I used to look forward to my next trip and everything. And now it's actually like the integration in the days afterwards, where you still have like a little more neuroplasticity than you normally do. It reopens some critical learning. There's like these there's some I'm forgetting the name of this. It's like critical learning time, basically, that your brain will like learn best, and then like when that's over, it has a hard time like relearning or continuing to learn a subject, and so it will reopen some of that plasticity in a way that I actually find that if I really, and it's why I now also don't trip very often, because now when I trip, I'm like, well, this is no longer just like a 4 to 10 hour thing. This is for me like a 3 day thing, because I want to have 2 days afterwards to like sit and write and process and think about what I'm going to do with some of these like new insights or reset moment. And so I now often view the psychedelic experience as just like oftentimes this pain in the ass thing that I'm like just gonna get through. A lot of times it's fun, but like early on it's like, whoa, I had this hallucination and I saw that, and that's fun. Like now I could give two shits about any like psychedelic hallucination that I'm experiencing. Like that's all just stuff that I experience, and then so that afterwards I have like some potential inspiration and some new insights that I flesh out over the next couple of days, and then hopefully this is like a bit of a reset in life, and it doesn't need to be like you know that dramatic, like I'm gonna change everything in my life or whatever. This is I think any moments for reflection when it's your birthday or something like that, or New Year's, and you're thinking about how last year went and what you might want to do this year. You got to manage your expectations a little bit. Those New Year's resolutions don't usually hold up until June or whatever.
Just look at the gym membership drop off.
Yeah. They get me every year. I get some new gym membership. Planet Fitness, pay every month. I've used it twice. But it's cheap though, and I'm doing that hashtag van life, so I need to have showers readily here and there. I don't stay in the van often. I'm usually in hotels or Airbnbs still, but it has a bed and it's very cute and nice. And
so you don't have like a house or an apartment right now?
No.
Wow.
I have a storage unit in Portland. I have a storage unit in the other side of the country in Raleigh. I have storage in Wisconsin, and I have stuff sprinkled in friends' houses all over the country, and so I can have like kind of wardrobe changes. I'm wearing the same 15 sets of clothes or whatever for X amount of time, and then I get somewhere else, and then it's a new 15 wardrobes or something like that, so I'm able to change things up a little bit. But
that's wild. Wait, how often are you in the Pacific Northwest then?
The tour is meant to be like my touring schedule is by season, so it's meant to be like an annual thing. So I should be on the road like 365, assuming I take off like December 15th to January 15th, and I like to spend winter in the south and summers on the north. So I'm making my way up north at the moment. And then I actually fly out to my vans in San Francisco right now, but then drive back up this way. I had some routing things, but usually I'm driving everywhere, and so then I just like figure out my routing so that I'll be going this summer. I'll be going across the northern border, bits of Canada and stuff, like Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, until I hit the East Coast in like August, and then I take like kind of a loop down, and so that I'm in the fall. I'll kind of be going through that next tier of like Cincinnati and St. Louis, just like a little still north, and then until I get to I record my special in Denver October 20th, and then I'll loop through like the Bible Belt area, and then I'll be getting into Florida and like end of November, December. We're finalizing a few things, and then I'll have the time off, and then January I'll start from Florida along the southern border until I go through Arizona and stuff, and find myself in California, where I usually spend some extra time anytime I'm in New York or LA. I spend a little extra time, and then do it all over again.
That's wild. Wow, that sounds cool though, and exciting, and like adventurous.
Yeah, I mean, I like it, and I've been everywhere, and still I see new places all the time. We go out of our way to find like weird cities. I literally have a map that I had made of like every city's like population over 50,000, and so if a city has over 100,000 people, we try to do it, even if it's a city that I've never heard of. A lot of times people are like, "You're bringing a psychedelic show through here? That's crazy." And I'm like, "You bet I am." I really like doing those markets. I really like finding weird, obscure cities that I haven't been to before. Yeah.
Hell yeah. So you were just in Tacoma. You're going to be here in Seattle June 16th.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure this is out before then.
Spokane right after that. And then heading east.
Hell yeah. Well, is there anything you want to say to the audience before we wrap up?
Well, just thanks so much for listening to the conversation all the way to the end and everything. If you were interested in learning more, my science podcast is called Here We Are, a show that's has science in it, but is more entertainment, is Mind Under Matter, which we mentioned in the beginning, and mostly, even if you aren't interested in psychedelics or haven't ever taken psychedelics, my new show is like really something special, and we have, I would say, if I had to guess, at least 10% of the audience has never had a psychedelic experience.
Dang.
And so you won't be alone. And I'm quite proud of it. It's a really cool show. So go to ShaneMauss.com, join my email list. We're adding new dates, like many cities a week. So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
This is your camera. This has been the NAST podcast with
Shane Mauss.
And we did it.